Hey, hi guys.
Morning.
Back for another round. And Joseph. I like the Joseph story. This is fun. I hope you guys don't expect things to continue as interesting as they are right now, because this story just tells itself. I mean, it really is one of the most interesting, compelling stories in all of worldwide literature. So, all right. So we'll start with reading the summary from last time that we put together. The title was Jacob identifies Joseph's blood-stained robe. Tamar deceives Judah to get herself a child after Judah fails to give her his final son. Joseph is unjustly accused by Potiphar's wife and put in jail. So our summary was, Reuben and the brothers returned, and the goat blood trick with Joseph's robe. Jacob mourns. The Midianite traders traded Joseph to Potiphar. Judah leaves the family for Chizib. Judah marries a Canaanite and has kids. 2 of his sons were killed for being evil. And then Tamar tricks Judah and has Perez and Zerah. Joseph takes over Potiphar's household. Potiphar's wife accuses Joseph. And then Joseph was thrown in prison. Somebody would put it in the bucket. Getting a good stack of papers in there. All right. Now, we got a title very early in the week, this week, from Julie. So thank you, Julie. For Genesis 40 through 41, 45. So if you guys want to turn there when we do our summary. The title was, Joseph interprets dreams in prison. The cupbearer forgets and remembers Joseph, and leading Pharaoh to put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. So, what happens first? Genesis 40. Actually, I do have the first thing. Daniel pointed out last week I made a mistake. And it was the first mistake I had ever made in my life. So this was a big moment for me. Now, you know what was sad about this mistake? Is you mentioned it and something was not sitting right with me. And I went back and looked, and on my notes, it's not mistaken. It's correct on my notes.
Yeah.
I didn't say what my notes said. And the reason my notes were right is because I had thought, that doesn't sound right. And I had actually asked the AI to look it up for me. And I had the right answer, and I said the wrong thing. So I said last time that the Pharaoh's birthday was the only mention of a birthday in the Bible. I was wrong. It's the only mention of a birthday in the Old Testament. And Daniel was good. He remembered the other birthday is Herod's birthday when he beheads John the Baptist. So we got 2 birthdays in the Bible, 1 in the Old Testament. So that was my mistake. My mea culpa. So we can put that in the summary.
And both are resulted in death.
All right, what else? First in Genesis 40.
The cupbearer and the baker had a dream.
Have dreams. All right. Then what?
Joseph interprets dreams.
Basically, the cupbearer gets pardoned, but the baker doesn't. Kind of gets the short end.
Cupbearer is pardoned. Baker is hanged.
Cupbearer forgot about Joseph.
For 2 years.
Pharaoh has a dream.
Very good. Pharaoh.
Pharaoh remembers Joseph.
Yep. I'd also add Pharaoh's magicians can't interpret it.
Mostly they couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
Joseph gets put in charge of everything.
Okay. Pretty good to me. Anything we missed?
Is this just 40? Or is this 41?
It was through 41 verse 45. This part of Genesis is so dense, it's very hard to just stop on a chapter boundary. So Okay. It's locked away. Now we're going to get started into Genesis 41:46. So you want to open your Bibles?
Actually, you said through 45?
Yeah.
You gave him a wife.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did miss that. It's kind of important. And where did that go? There it is. What was it? Asenath?
I don't know. Yeah.
A-S-E.
Asenath or
Priest of On's
M-A-T.
daughter. That'll become important today. Okay, now we got them. All right. So now turning to 41, verse 46. So just to get us back into this, last week we talked a little bit about psychic, spiritual warfare, the spiritual realm, that kind of stuff. One thing I would recommend, this made a big impact on me, I don't know if it should have, but if you're skeptical of this, search YouTube for former psychics and mediums who have become Christian. In other words, they have no reason to lie now. And see if those people say, yeah, I was making it all up just to make money. I have not found one yet that said that. They said, God saved me from the darkness, is what they said. So that's if you're questioning that, that's a good place to look.
Honestly, the video definitely was interesting. Like,
Yes, it was. So, one thing I did forget to talk about last time that it struck me, I think it's a little important, is you remember the word for God, when you see God, capital G, it's Elohim, right? And it's the same as the word for the gods in Hebrew. And when Pharaoh is talking to Joseph, we're reading the story translated from Hebrew, and it keeps using God, capital G. Pharaoh says, what did he say? He said, can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God? And you think, that's a little out of character for Pharaoh. Does he believe that God is God? You know, he thinks he's a God. You'll see a little footnote down in the ESV even, that the word in Hebrew is Elohim. The Hebrew word is not what Pharaoh was using, right? We're seeing a Hebrew translation of Pharaoh speaking Egyptian. But it could also be, or it probably is, him saying the gods, or I think it's more likely your God. Like, we have our gods, and can we find someone else in whom is the spirit of the gods, or a God? Like, your God's good, my God's good, all the gods are good, you know. And so when you see Pharaoh and the Egyptians talking about that, and even when you see Joseph talking about it to his brothers about God, and they don't know that he's Hebrew yet, that's why they don't mention it. That's why it doesn't seem like a prominent part of the story, is to them, they're just talking about other gods within the pantheon of all the gods. But we're starting in here, Joseph has just had his Goodwill Hunting moment. Has anybody ever seen that movie from a long time ago? Yeah, it was this janitor at a college who'd go in at night, and there'd be random math problems on the board, and he'd solve it overnight on the board, and then they'd come in the next morning and there's this really hard problem solved, and the professor's like, what's going on? This was Joseph, right? All the magicians, the professors were there in front of Pharaoh. All the professors, all their grad students could not answer the math question on the board. And this guy from prison just walks up and done. That's what's just happened to Joseph. That's why he's in charge. He did what the professors could not do out of his own mental intellect. All right, so 46. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. How old was he when he got sold as a slave? Anybody remember? 17. That's right. It's been 13 years. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plentiful years, the earth produced abundantly, and he gathered up all the food of these 7 years which occurred in the land of Egypt and put the food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields around it. Now you see the genius of Joseph here. We have just instituted a new grain tax. I'm sure not everybody in Egypt was all on board that Joseph's 100% right. There's going to be 7 years of famine, right? And so when the government institutes a new tax, there's generally rebellion, except Joseph kept all the food in the city where it was raised. He said there's famine coming, and we're going to keep your food here so that you won't die. We're not taking it all back to Pharaoh's palace, which is what most people's plan would have been. This is the genius of Joseph, is that the food stayed in the cities where it was raised. But it was still Pharaoh's. And Joseph stored up grain in great abundance like the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured. Before the year of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore them to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for, he said, God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house. Manasseh, it says down here, sounds like the Hebrew word for making to forget. The name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. The 7 years of plenty that occurred in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph, what he says to you do." So when the famine had spread over all the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the earth came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe over all the earth. 2 sons born to Joseph. They call them later the half-tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. And their mother is a pagan priest's daughter. There is no way the Jews made that up after escaping Egypt, where they've been oppressed, to say, you know what, 2 of the tribes are actually half Egyptian. And not just half Egyptian, half pagan Egyptian, right? Like, that's definitely a true thing that has happened here. Joseph's statement of naming his son forgetting, though, Manasseh, is a little strange. If you name your son forgetting, every time you say his name, you're going to remember what you were supposed to forget. Right? In the words of the great Raymond from Everybody Loves Raymond, don't think about zebras, go. Sorry, you can't not think about zebras when you say zebras. So that's not the kind of forgetting that he means here. The kind of forgetting that he means is kind of like in the book The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. I know Steve's read it because I lent it to him. If you've ever read that, it's an allegory about people in hell getting a chance to visit heaven for a little while. And they won't choose heaven. All they have to do is just choose heaven and they can stay. But they won't choose it because they hang on to things that keep pulling them back to hell. One of those people, he's called the big man. He was a supervisor at a factory in the world, and he meets a guy who used to work under him named Len. And Len was a murderer. He murdered one of the other guys who was working under the big man. And the big man says, "How did you get into heaven instead of me? Why are you here? I deserve to be here, not you. You were a murderer." And Len is there as his ambassador to try to convince him, just choose joy, just choose heaven. And he tells them that you've got to let go of all that stuff from the past and ask for forgiveness for yourself, because he says, in heaven, all the former things are put away, because everything has been made new. But the big man won't do it. He ends up going back to hell. He won't let go of the that guy was worse than me feeling. That's the kind of forgetting that Joseph names Manasseh. I forget the past wrongs done to me. And that is really freeing. But you'll see that forgetting and forgiving his brothers did not mean that he allowed them to continue to hurt him. When they came back, he tests them first. They're forgiven, but they get tested. So he knows what to do with them. And I personally, I have some sympathy for women in this regard. I think it is harder for you guys to forget than it is for men.
No.
You may. I've heard this from, there's a wonderful woman who has helped with male-female relations all over the world, yes?
Considering I watch a lot of murder documentaries about vengeful women,
Okay.
I can attest to that.
Thank you for sharing. I do not think women are murderers, that's not what we're saying. No. I have heard this, though, explained very well. There's a wonderful woman named Alison Armstrong who hosts a lot of written some books and things trying to help men and women understand each other better. one of the things that she described, and I think it's right, is that women have a mental filing cabinet in their head. And every time something is being argued about, the filing cabinet gets opened, and the file comes out of the cabinet of every past wrong that this person has ever done to me. I see a lot of smiles, like, well, you know what, I think maybe this might be accurate. My experience has been that the woman is rarely arguing about what's actually happening now. They're arguing about the accumulated set of sort of unresolved past wrongs. They read the file back into the legal record. It's part of the argument. But the man is always trying to focus on what just happened. He's like, yeah, okay, all that, I know, that's all there, but like, let's just look at this right now, and this is the source of many of the arguments that go unresolved between men and women, right? We're arguing different things. And so, the worst part is when the man tries to focus on, wait, let's just look at this. I think from the woman's perspective, that's him telling her, your feelings about all the past wrongs don't matter. What matters is this thing right now. We'll deal with those later. And she's like, nah, you won't deal with those later. So if you find your arguments with the opposite sex confusing, okay, and you would like them to actually become a little more predictable, they're not going as planned, you know, if you're a man, recognize that you do need to deal with the unresolved past. Back up from the anger for a minute and say, wait a minute, this is important to her. Let's think about this for a second. And if you are a woman, recognize that your husband just wants to focus on solving the problem at hand. He wants to solve things, right? And so by not focusing, it makes it harder for him to solve. If either side can see that in the heat of battle, the arguments become predictable. Like now, they go the way you expect them to go, even if you don't win. And I will say from the outside looking in, my plea to women with the filing cabinet is just recognize that you have a filing cabinet, number one. And that it is often making you miserable for no good reason. It makes you a lot sadder than you have to be. You need to name the filing cabinet Manasseh. You need to just put a label on the side of it and say Manasseh. I can forget these things, and you will be much happier. I don't know how, because I don't have that. We don't have the filing cabinet in our brain. We're lucky to remember what happened yesterday. Ironically, physiologically, I've heard that after an argument, about an hour later, a man has endorphins released into his system, and he feels much better, even if he lost. He's like, oh, yes, he'll come back to you all happy. A female, the anger chemicals stay there for at least 24 hours, and they get worse as they go. So the 1 hour later when the man's coming back, that's just one more wrong. So God made us for each other, I think. Anyways. But that's the power of forgetting, Manasseh. That's what Manasseh is all about. So let's go on, Genesis 42. When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, why do you look at one another? He said, behold, I've heard there's grain for sale in Egypt. Go down there and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die. So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might come to him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy, among others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Such a loving dad. Quit standing around looking at each other and go get us some food. That's what he said. Literally quit looking at each other. And not only that, it's going to come back to bite him later. He's like, how about you go get us some food so we don't die? You know, that's what Judas is going to say back to him later. Like, Dad, I want to go, but I got to take Benjamin so we don't die. So on this map, the journey that he's proposing that they take, it's from Hebron down here, you know, somewhere into the interior of Egypt. And this line from here to here, I measured it, it's 340 miles. This little red line right here, I don't know if you can see it.
I see.
From back in the back. Well, maybe I can't zoom. Whoa. Okay, I zoomed and it went the opposite direction with that. All right, now it's even smaller. I can't make it go the other way. This little line is 20 miles. That's about a day's travel back in those days. So we're talking ballpark 17 days of travel one way to get there. Benjamin's going to stay home. The brothers are going to go get it. And when we read that, you think, little Benjamin, we don't want him to have to go. Like in your head, he's 10. He's 37. Okay? Because at this point, we know how old Joseph is, and Benjamin was born a couple years before Joseph. Right? 7 years of famine happened. We're into the next year. Joseph's about 39. So he's 37 years old, and his dad is still like, if I send him with his brothers, he might not come back like Joseph. We never hear from Benjamin either, by the way. I don't know how he would have spoke up in his own defense. But all right, so verse 6. Now Joseph was governor over the land. He was the one who sold all the people, sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them. And somehow he held it together. I don't know how he held it together in this situation, I'm going to be honest. But he recognized them. Where do you come from? He said. And they said, well, from the land of Canaan to buy food. They are not expecting this at all, right? They're like, we're just going to buy some food. What's the price? We're headed back home. And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Now why? Why? He's fully Egyptian, right? He's got the Egyptian haircut. He's speaking Egyptian through an interpreter. He's the leader of all of Egypt. He has an Egyptian wife. There's no reason for them to even suspect this might be Joseph, right? And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them. I see him sitting there as the brothers are going down like this. I have a feeling that part of the narrative is all happening in a split second in his mind. And in his mind, these 10 brothers are the 10 sheaves of grain. Like he's overlaying them in his mind over the brothers bowing down on the ground. It's the exact dream that he had 20 years ago, right in front of his face. And he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." And I imagine the brothers, down on the ground like that. They're like, all right, we'll get our food and go. Wait, what? Spies? What? We just came to buy grain. Like, what? No. And they said to him, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We're all sons of one man. We're honest men. Your servants have never been spies." And he said to them, "No, it is the nakedness of the land you have come to see." And they're like, what? And they said, We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more. But Joseph said to them, "It is as I said to you, you are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, and let him bring your brother while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there is truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." And he put them all together in custody for 3 days.
I mean, he probably did not say nakedness. Maybe he did.
Why did Joseph settle on this? Why Benjamin? I think Joseph isn't sure Benjamin's still alive, right? How does he know that they didn't do something bad to Benjamin too? Because he knew Benjamin was also the favored son. Did he just want to see Benjamin again? I mean, I could see that too. He's like, well, Benjamin's not here. I want to see him.
At that point, you would just say, "Bring your father."
Well, you would think, yeah, but he also he could also just want to mess with him a little bit. I mean, it does say he forgot their offense.
Just because you forget doesn't mean you ever really fully forgive.
I also think, though, he wanted to protect Benjamin, because he suggests all the brothers stay here and one goes back and gets him. So I think he's not only worried something has happened to Benjamin, something might happen to Benjamin. And so I want Benjamin here with me.
I don't remember, was Benjamin not one of the ones that took him when they all threw him in the pit?
I don't think so.
No, Benjamin was not part of that at all. Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you just couldn't understand the situation and you overshared? You're trying to explain it and you said a bunch of stuff you didn't really need to say, I had this happen to me in a legal deposition one time. This is how I learned how sneaky lawyers are. They try to get you off guard. And then you're in this no man's land of we're not sure what we're talking about, and you overshare. And then you say things you regret later. That is exactly what happened to them. They didn't need to tell him anything about Dad or Benjamin or anything back home, right? But they were so confused that they were like, what? No, we're all brothers. We're not like guys from the military coming to spy you out. We all have the same dad. It's strange that they still think of themselves as 12 brothers, though. In that moment, when they're not fully in possession of their faculties, the first thing to mind is we're 12 brothers. Like, my dad had 12 sons. It is an exquisite irony because it is kind of oddly specific that the one thing they overshared was about the brother that died and the other brother. Like, they could have just said we're 10 brothers, we all have the same dad, and full stop. That's all they were trying to prove. Can you imagine the conversations in prison for the next 3 days, though? Because they are all in prison.
Probably.
They first get in there, like, what just happened? The younger brothers are blaming Reuben. He's supposed to be in charge, right? Like, what do you say? First, there's just disbelief. They're confused. Joseph obviously came up in those 3 days. At some point where they're like, why is this happening? Somebody's like, it's because of Joseph. You know this is because of what we did to Joseph, and we're getting payback. Because that comes out when they come back to see Joseph in a minute. Then they're blaming each other. Then they're probably trying to plan, all right, when we get out of here, we're going to clear this up. This is a huge misunderstanding. Next time we get in front of Pharaoh, first thing, we're going to fix this and get back. Why did you have to mention Benjamin? Like, why Benjamin? Why does Benjamin have to come here? That's the one thing that can't happen. They had a bad 3 days. They had a really,
I
really
can
bad
imagine many brotherly things they'll say in prison.
yes. All right, so verse 18. On the third day, Joseph said to them, do this and you will live, for I fear God. I fear Elohim. They're hearing him say, I fear your God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine of your households, and bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. Then they said to one another, in truth, we are guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us, and we did not listen. That's why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? But you did not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood. Now they did not know that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter between them. And then he turned away from them, and he wept. Joseph cries a lot. But he turned away, the tears were falling. They're not paying attention because they're busy arguing amongst themselves, right?
Considering what's happened to him, he deserves a few cheers.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, and to replace every man's money in his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey, and this was done for them. Then they loaded their donkeys with their grain, and they departed. As one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money in the mouth of his sack. He said to his brothers, Reuben, Judah, get in here! No! And they're like, what? My money has been put back here in the mouth of my sack. And at this their hearts failed them, and they turned trembling to one another, saying, what is this that God has done to us?
Oh.
Went from bad to worse.
I gotta say, Joseph probably got a good laugh getting him back.
I don't know if he was laughing. I mean, you'd think he would be laughing. I don't know if he was or not,
probably a little. Like.
They have to be thinking, okay, so first, now you see what an amazing strategist Joseph is, right? There's 3 days while they're in prison, he's planning this. And I don't know that I could have come up with anything nearly as ingenious as this, put their money back in their bags to try to make sure they come back. But they come out of prison, right? They're before Joseph. They're going to say, look, this has all been a big misunderstanding. And Joseph says first, all you go back, I'm keeping one, bring Benjamin. No! Benjamin? Why Benjamin? Why? What in the world would that have to do with us being spies? If we bring a guy back and tell you his name's Benjamin, like, what in the world? How does that prove we're not spies? That's how confusing this is. Why did he pick Simeon? Pick Simeon because Simeon was second oldest. Reuben was oldest, should have picked Reuben, but Reuben tried to save him in the first place. Reuben's his buddy. So Reuben gets to go back home. Simeon stays here in prison. But it is interesting that, man, the very first thing that comes up, even in public, in front of everybody else, after 20 years, is Joseph, is what they did to Joseph. Joseph got to have Manasseh. Joseph got to forget. He's been living a reasonably good life. And these 10 brothers have been eaten away by the guilt for 20 years, to the point that 20 years later, it's the first thing that comes up when trouble happens. But their first response when they find the money is, what did God do to us? They blame God. They're like, I know that we deserve this, but how are we going to get out of this? Ironically, it actually is indeed from God. God did do this very thing to them. What do you think their explanation was? They find the money. You don't hear their like going back and forth. What possible explanation could there even be for the money being back in your sack? The only one I could come up with was, there has to be some kind of palace intrigue going on, and we're pawns in some weird power struggle in Egypt. Why else would they put our money back in our sack? Either it was a complete miracle from God, which is what the steward tells them later, or there must be some kind of machinations afoot that we don't know about. So, all right, verse 29. When they came to Joseph, their father, in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, I have a feeling they said this very fast. They all pulled up on the donkeys. They got off. They're itching to tell him first. They're like, Dad, Dad, Dad. The man, the Lord of the land, spoke roughly to us and took us to be spies of the land. But we said to him, we're honest men. We've never been spies. We're 12 brothers, sons of our father. One's no more, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And then the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, and take grain for the famine of your households, and go your way. Bring your youngest brother to me. Then I shall know that you are not spies, but honest men, and I will deliver your brother to you, and you shall trade in the land. I think Jacob's confused. Now, this is not what he expected to happen when they got back with the food. They emptied their sacks, and behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob, their father, said to them, you have bereaved me of my children. Joseph's no more, Simeon's no more, and now you would take Benjamin? All this has come against me. And then Reuben said to his father, kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you. But he said, no, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he's the only one left. If harm should happen to come to him on the journey that you were to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol.
He does realize he has other sons, right?
So, that's part of it. I don't know if Jacob realizes how cruel he is here.
He
right?
probably doesn't.
First off, to Reuben. Reuben is saying to Dad, Dad, you have never believed in me, but I can do this. He's sort of saying, like we would say today, I swear on the lives of my 2 children. I swear on the lives of my family, I can do this. He doesn't really mean, Dad, kill my 2 kids if I don't bring them back. You know what I mean? It's his way of emphasizing the point. The brothers have this terrible pattern of over-promising. They have tremendous overconfidence, and really, Reuben has overconfidence here. Why on earth would Reuben have any expectation that he could actually pull this off? He should not have made such a swear. He should have listened to Jesus, who said, let your yes be yes, and your no be no, and call it good. It's a total false confidence. And I think, so first, I'm pretty sure Jacob has lost all confidence in Reuben because he slept with Bilhah to defile her. Remember that? Like that, they've never been on good terms since then. That comes up at the end. But, you know, on the other hand, Reuben's performance, he lost Joseph, he's lost Simeon. Round 3, like, we're just not going to do it. No, Reuben, I'm not going to do it. But how does Jacob say that to them? He says, I only have one son left for the other 10 sons. Boys cannot escape the opinion of their father of them. It's impossible. You will carry that with you your whole life, and it will color how you're able to interact with God. If you had a loving father, you will see God as loving. If you had a controlling father, you will see God as controlling. If you had an angry, mean father, you will feel like God's just mean to you and that you can never do anything right. Like, that's what these brothers are living with. Their dad is telling them over and over, and right here in no uncertain terms, Benjamin, stay in here. I never wanted your mom, and I never wanted you. I don't care if Simeon dies. Leave him in Egypt. Benjamin's staying here. It's a hard day. It's a hard day for them. 43. Now the famine was severe. Oh, Sheol. You guys know what Sheol is? I think most of you do.
I'm guessing it's Hebrew for grave.
No, good guess. It can be synonymous with grave. Sheol is the realm of the dead, and
same.
it's the same as Hades in ancient Greek, or in the ancient Greek cultures. Jesus tells a story about the rich man and Lazarus in Sheol, in the realm of the dead. And so that's what he means. It's not necessarily a good or bad place. There's good places in Sheol, and there's bad places in Sheol. So. Now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go again and buy us a little food. But Judah said to him, the man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy food, but if you will not send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. And Israel said, why do you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you had another brother? Why did you have to say that? That's what he's saying. And they replied, well, the man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kindred, saying, is your father still alive? Do you have another brother? What we told him was an answer to these questions. No, he did not. He did not question them. They just volunteered it. It was entirely an overshare. Could we in any way know that he would say, bring your brother down? And Judah said to his father Israel, send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die. Remember you saying that when we went the first time? Both we and you, and also our little ones. I will be a pledge of his safety. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. If we had not delayed, we would have now returned twice. And now you know how long that was. It's about 2 months Simeon's been in prison, and they've just been sitting around eating what they had, assuming the famine would break. And now he's saying, we need to get there now, Dad. Now remember, this is right after Judah has had his big transformational moment with Tamar, right? Timeline-wise, that had just happened to him, right before, about 2 months ago, right before the first trip. And so now Judah is a different man. Judah is taking the reins of the family and saying, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to go back and bring everybody back, Dad. He's fourth in line. There's Reuben, Simeon, Levi. Simeon and Levi, Jacob doesn't trust. So Judah's the next one. Reuben's already out. So their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags, and carry a present down to the man, a little balm and a little honey, gum, myrrh, pistachio, nuts, and almonds. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks, and perhaps it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and arise and go again to the man. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother and Benjamin. And as for me, If I'm bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. So the men took this present, and they took double the money with them and Benjamin. And they arose and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. You may have missed a little thing here, what Jacob told them to take to Egypt. This is a very good sign of, this happens a lot in Genesis, of what goes around comes around. If you turn back to see what it was that the Midianite and Ishmaelite traders were trading to get the money that they paid for Joseph in the first place, it was the exact things that they put in there. It was fruit, honey, nuts, gum, balm, and myrrh. Same stuff. And so now the brothers are going to take the fruit, honey, nuts, balm, and myrrh back to Egypt to trade for their brother, the other direction. So they go in, I'm sure they got a plan. When Joseph saw that Benjamin was with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Bring the men into the house, and slaughter an animal and make ready, for the men are to dine with me at noon." The man did as Joseph told him and brought the men to Joseph's house. And the men were afraid because they were brought to Joseph's house. This is not going how they planned. Wait, we're going to his house to have lunch? What? They had a whole speech planned. And they said, "It's because of the money which was placed in our sacks the first time that we are brought in, so that he may assault us and fall upon us and make us servants and seize our donkeys." Yeah, right. Like the guy in charge of all of Egypt, he wants your donkey.
Yeah.
So they went up to the steward of Joseph's house and spoke with him at the door of the house, and he said, "Oh, my lord, we came down the first time to buy food, and when we came to the lodging place, we opened our sacks, and there was each man's money in the mouth of his sack. Our money in full weight. So, we're honest, so we brought it again with us, and we have brought other money down with us to buy food. We do not know who put our money in our sacks." And he replied, the steward's name is Jimmy, by the way. I don't know if you caught that. Jimmy Stewart, he is the best actor in the Bible. Best actor. Thank you. That was my own joke. I made that up. He does, man. He acts brilliantly through this whole narrative. So. Anyway, so what he's about to say, he says, "Peace to you. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has put treasure in your sacks for you. I received your money." And then he brought Simeon out to them. And when the man had brought the men into Joseph's house and given them water, and they had washed their feet, and when he had given their donkeys fodder, they prepared the present for Joseph's coming at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread there. It doesn't say that Simeon came out and said, "What took you guys so long?"
Probably would say that.
I am sure Simeon thought he was a dead man, right? He was in prison for 2 months thinking, you know what, Dad's never loved me. He has never letting Benjamin go. I'm here forever. So, but they were happy to see him. And kind of like Joseph was called out of prison, went straight to Pharaoh. He's called out of prison and says, straight to eat lunch with this guy. So when Joseph came home, they brought into the house to him the present that they had with them and bowed down to him to the ground. And he inquired about their welfare and said, "Is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" Like, I'm just making small talk. I have no personal vested interest in how your father is doing. No, I'm just small talk. And they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves, and he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. Remember, he's 39, 40, Benjamin's 37. And he said, I assume with a crack in his voice, is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me? God be gracious to you, my son. And then Joseph hurried out, for his compassion grew warm for his brother, and he sought a place to weep. And he entered his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out, and controlling himself, he said, "Serve the food." They served him by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in amazement. They walked in and there were name tags at the table in order of their birth. They're all grown adults, so there's no way you could look at them and know who was the oldest. That would totally throw anybody for a loop. Joseph knows how to keep them back on their heels all the time in this situation. And the men looked at one another in amazement. Portions were taken to them from Joseph's table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him. So the waiter's coming around. It's like, mashed potatoes? Yeah. You want mashed potatoes? Benjamin's here. You want mashed potatoes? Like, and Benjamin's like, what? The other brothers are, what is going on here?
There's the classic older brothers stealing the younger one.
Yep, it is. As part of this story is a test of how I've said often that you are Cain, right? We're Cain in this story. It is how do you react to somebody else getting undeserved things or things you don't think they deserve instead of you, right? And in this case, I don't think the brothers were jealous. When Joseph was around, this would have driven them nuts.
Yeah.
But it seems like now they've made their peace. I don't know why Benjamin gets all this favoritism, but it keeps coming to him. Good for him, right? It's kind of like the parable of the workers that Jesus said, that when you get to heaven, are you going to look around at everybody and be like, I worked my whole life for the kingdom, and that guy converted to Christianity on his deathbed. That's not fair. Jesus says, that's not how it works. I'm giving a gift to all of you. Whether I give a bigger gift to him or not, what's that to you? Be happy for your gift, right? Same thing here. Be happy for Benjamin, even if you don't get what you wanted. But there's a very important verse in here that is going to color the entire rest of the story, and it's critical to the storyline happening, and that is that the Egyptians won't eat with the foreigners. This is not unique to Egyptians. It's not unique to Americans. I know it's fashionable these days to think that like white Americans are the only racist people that have ever lived in the history of the world. It actually is common to every group that has ever existed in humanity. Every group, every nation thinks that they're a little better than the other nations. Every group you're in it because you think it's good to be in the group, right? If the group is made up of inherent traits of you, that's racist. If the group is made up of people who are going out in the community and doing good things, you think you're better because we do all these good things. It's part of human nature to segregate ourselves and to evaluate the groups. You can't get away from it. And I think one of the reasons that we do segregate ourselves is that it is almost overwhelming to consider that every other person in this room is just as complex and important a soul as we are. All the thoughts that go on in our head are all focused on how the world is interacting with us. How are things coming to us? How is that affecting me? All my plans are about what can I do to get ahead? What can I do to do this? Even if I'm going to help somebody, it's I-centered. It's I'm going to help them because I should do that. I want that. Like that's just how we think. And it can be overwhelming to even think with the people in this room. Every one of them is a universe unto themselves. So you broaden that out to whole countries, whole nations, whole societies. You just can't deal with it mentally. So you have to segregate. You have to model that somehow to deal with it. And you'll know this is coming up when you start using the word the in front of the group's names. It means you've put them in this stranger bucket. They're a stranger. They're not part of my group. And so when you say things like the Jews, or the Germans, or the Presbyterians, or the whites. With your own group, all the people in there are individuals and they have names. But with the other group, they're just the group. It's what we do. It's what humans do. And none of the rest of the plan of salvation would have happened if the Egyptians had eaten with the Hebrews. Because if God had left the Hebrews in Canaan, they would have become Canaanites. Because in Canaan, they mixed with the peoples, because they didn't hate them for being Hebrew. If he left them in Canaan, look at Judah. Judah, one of the first generation, decided, I'm done being Hebrew, I'm going to be Canaanite. right? He went and married a Canaanite, had Canaanite kids, lived with the Canaanites. How long would it be before there was not a single Israelite left? We're just Canaanites. And look at Joseph. How hard is it for Jews to keep people Jewish when the society around them accepts them? Joseph is fully Egyptian. He has an Egyptian pagan wife. He's running Egypt. He speaks Egyptian. He eats Egyptian. His haircut is Egyptian. These are just two of the first generation. If God had not taken the Jews and put them somewhere that would have had this racial animosity towards them, he would never have forged the nation of Israel. And they would never have been a people to come out and return to the promised land. And that's why they had to go. That's why they had to be slaves. They had to be somewhere where the society rejected them. Now, why they rejected them is actually really interesting. It's not race-based. Most of the commentators I read took for granted that it was race-based because they were writing in a modern Western mindset where race is this really important thing. It was religious-based. There's an ancient Greek historian, Herodotus, who actually said that Greeks, or that the Egyptians would not eat with foreigners. They would not kiss foreigners on the lips. They would not kiss them on the cheeks. They would not even touch them because they had two gods, Isis and Hathor, who were gods of female cows. And anybody who raises or eats female cows is an abomination to them because that was their gods. And so what profession were the Hebrews? Anybody remember?
Cattle slaughterers?
They're shepherds.
Oh, yeah.
They raise cattle and sheep and goats. So the people that come in as shepherds, they are the ones who are denigrating our God. I won't touch them. If I touch them, it's like the Jews having to go through their cleanliness rituals, right? Later on, God gives them their own cleanliness rituals. Like if a dead lizard falls in your pot, you have to break the pot. If you touch blood, you have to cleanse yourself from going to the temple. It's the same thing for them. They touch somebody who could possibly have eaten a cow. And now I got to go cleanse myself religiously, and so we stay separate. And that led to them being completely confined, so that God could forge a people out of them. All right, we're going to stop there for today.